What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and here we are with what is quickly becoming one of my absolute favorite series that we do here on the PikaPikaPaPa channel. Now, you all know I am always looking for the most relevant, most up-to-date, most in-the-moment data I can possibly find, because I'm always saying I want us on this channel to be playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. And when I think about those parameters, the information we're going to talk about on the video today, it doesn't get any more real, it doesn't get any more updated. Like, this is actual data coming from TCGPlayer. So let me walk through what this is. Every 2 weeks, TCGPlayer sends out a list of the most in-demand but understocked cards on their website. Now think about that. TCGPlayer is the second biggest platform for buying and selling Pokemon cards outside of eBay. So when a platform of that size with that kind of like hobby magnitude is sending us this information saying, hey, listen, these cards are in super high demand, super low supply. We want you to put them on our website because, hey, that's how TCGPlayer makes money, right? Like, they make money when we buy, sell, and trade on their platform because they get a cut of all that. So at first, we started this video out, I don't know, 2 months ago, and I approached it with a lot of trepidation. But every single 2 weeks, every single time I get to put this stuff together, every single time I get to look back on, okay, this card was on this list 4 weeks ago, it was on the list 6 weeks ago, where's the price now? We're getting leveled up. We're starting to notice patterns and trends, and if you can't tell, I am incredibly excited, and I absolutely love this video series. Now, another really cool thing that I have gotten from this is, hey, listen, the other night I was ripping Pokemon 151 with my kids, and the fascinating thing to me was we were ripping, we were having a ton of fun, and we were setting aside the cards that we want for our PC, but then I was also able to set some cards aside that I wouldn't have recognized if I hadn't been putting this list together as cards that had a big potential for selling super fast. I was able to list them and sell them almost instantaneously. I put them at a fair price. People were out there with open arms and they bought them. So when I'm ripping packs, not only can I focus on enjoying it with the kids, we set aside our PC cards, but because I have this knowledge in my head, I can list them and sell them and buy more packs and get more stuff that I really enjoy in a heartbeat. And that is one of the many reasons why I love this video so much. Now, I will say this list has expanded from 50 to 100. I think TCGPlayer has seen a lot of upside from this content, so they've expanded it from a list of 50 to 100. So I'm going to break it down in a couple different ways. As you would expect, there's a ton of 151 cards on this list. I'm going to start off with showing us all of the non-Pokemon 151 cards that are on this list, because I think we can get an idea of how older cards on this list have performed. Then we'll get into the 151 and go from there. And listen, if this kind of stuff excites you, if you were chomping at the bit for me to hit that next slide, we do fun stuff like this all the time on the PikaPikaPaPa channel. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Questions or comments, drop them down below. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. And as I always remind you, those 3 small things go a long way in helping a small content creator like me out. Lets me know you appreciate the work that I put in. With that being said, let's get into it and see what is on the list. So as I said, I'm going to start off with the non-Pokemon 151 cards that made this top 100 list. Now, we've been doing this for, I don't know, 6-8 weeks now. And one of the brilliant subscribers out there said, hey, listen, there's a lot of data on here. Why don't you highlight the things you're going to specifically talk about? And I said, you're a genius. We're going to do that. So starting off, you'll see in the blue right there. Now, I wanted to call that out because these are the top ranked cards on the list this week that aren't Pokemon 151 that were in the top 21 last week. Now, for me, it's really interesting to see that out of all the cards that were in the top 21 last week, look, only one of them is negative. All of the other ones are up in price after the last 2 weeks. Now, remember, this is 2 weeks. That's a huge gain, 15%, even 3% over the span of 2 weeks. Like, that's a good price jump, right? And the fact that only one of them is down, it's down 1%, that's kind of a push in my book. It just gives me another data point as I'm looking at this as we continue to do more and more videos. Like, hey, is there something there to these cards in the top 20? Do they have the best opportunity at future price appreciation? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to watch that Charizard EX, which is ranked at number 8 this week. It was at number 1 last week. It's up 13% over the last couple weeks. Really, really interesting to see that. And again, look here, the energy cards that are on here, I'm calling those out as well, because where we look at the biggest losses, that's where it came from. Energy cards are in high demand. Those are absolutely beautiful. I'm sure people are buying them and stacking their decks with them, because if I was a player, I would do the same thing, because those energies are fire, right? But guess what? Not a whole lot of collectability. I'm sure they're burning through them left and right. I'm sure there's an overabundance of them. So when we look for the red here, that is where we see that. We see most of our losses come from those energy cards. But then look at all the non-energy cards. If you pull those out of the mix over the last 2 weeks, 6 of the 8 non-energy cards here on this non-Pokemon 151 list went up in price. Like, that is one of the reasons we do all this stuff. That's why I want this to become a tool in everybody's tool belt moving forward, is because, hey, listen, if there are cards in your collection that are on this list that you don't have a lot of value and you want to get rid of them, great, no problem. You can go ahead and sell them. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there willing to buy them. But if not, there might be a little bit of a buy and hold here. I just want everybody to be cautious. A lot of these cards are driven by playability. Playability can go up and down. Obviously, we have a long time until we look at rotation again. But as people fill their decks, some of these cards, might lose a little bit of their luster. Now, another thing that I called out was, look at that, there's a Neo Genesis card on here. Like, where does that come from? This list is filled with ultra modern every single week, so I think it's really, really cool to see a Neo Genesis card pop up there. And I love seeing that Iono 185 from the regional championship deck. Like, how cool is that? Anytime I see a special card like that, all the way up at $21, I just think that's a really, really cool addition to the collection. Anytime it's stamped with staff or regional championship or world championships or anything like that, I love it when there's a story behind a card. And as I was saying earlier, I'm starting to warehouse this data, right? I keep all of this in an Excel spreadsheet so I can look back 2 weeks ago. I can look back 4 weeks ago. I can look back 6 weeks ago. And I thought it was really cool to call out this Charizard EX, the 228 from Obsidian Flames, because guess what? Last week it wasn't on the list. It barely made the list this week, right? It's up at 98, so it's in the understock rank. They rank it from 1 to 100, right? The Charizard EX is coming in at number 98. But guess what? 4 weeks ago, when it was on the list, it was only at $25 and change. Since then, it's gone up $1.50, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's almost a 10% price appreciation in the last month. That is incredible information. And again, that is why I am so excited about this video series, to keep doing this for you guys and to keep looking for patterns in the background and seeing what we can recognize. Now, guess what we're about to get into? Pokemon 151 Palooza, and there is all kinds of awesome pieces of cardboard up here. Now, as you would expect, remember, every new set goes through what I call the Pokemon pop and flop, right? Like pre-release, as it's coming up to it, even a couple days post-release, all these cards pop up through the roof. Everybody wants to be the first one to get them. I understand that. Maybe some people are trying to rush them through PSA, knowing that first to market with a PSA 10, there's going to be a premium then, but then they usually flop back down, right? I call it the Pokemon pop and flop, pops up in price, flops back down. But there is some smattering of green in here, right? And I think it's really cool to look at that Charizard EX from Scarlet and Violet 151, the one that's numbered 199, right? This week it's coming in at number 2. Last week it was number 8. It's up 1%, but again, when you look at these big chase cards, it's only over 2 weeks period. But again, the fact that it's staying flat or up 1% over such a short amount of time for such a new set, I don't know if it can continue to keep the momentum, but to me, it's really, really cool to see that, right? And then the two cards that I'm keeping a very close eye on is, obviously I'm gonna keep an eye on that Blastoise, right? I love the fact that it's number 1. It wasn't on the list last week, so it's gonna be really interesting to see how that performs from this week to next. Are we going to see what we saw, last couple weeks, where we saw that those cards in the top 20 performed better than the cards outside of it? If anything has the opportunity, this Blastoise is it. The other one I'm going to keep an eye on is that Pikachu. I pulled it the other day. It's an absolute stunner of a card. The thing that's really interesting to me about the Pikachu space is, if you watch my grading report video, Charizard has been the number 1 most graded card in the TCG space for as long as I can remember. But over the last 3 months, Pikachu has taken over the crown. Pikachu has been the most graded character in the TCG space. And remember, this includes Magic, it includes Yu-Gi-Oh!, it includes anything in the TCG space. Charizard has always been number 1. In the last 3 months, Pikachu has taken over that crown. Now, that doesn't mean that Pikachu's cards are going to be worth more money. The Fire Lizard is absolutely the king. But when I'm looking at a card like this that checks a lot of boxes, it's from a great set, it's an absolute stunner of a card, it's sitting at $22.43, I'm going to be very interested to see where it ends up. Now, the other thing that I talked about is, remember, we're looking at cards in the top 20, okay? That's what we looked at when we were talking about the cards that were outside of Scarlet and Violet 151. So I figured, let's do the same thing here in 151. Honestly, I expected most of them to be down. I know that there's not a lot of green, but I expected there to be even more red. In the top 20 last 2 weeks ago, guess what? 5 of them are up and 5 of them are down. That's kind of it's not kind of, it is a 50-50 split, right? So that is more, actually, that's a better turnout than what I expected. I always expect cards to fall hard, but the fact that we're seeing some Pokemon 151 cards with some strength going up over the last 2 weeks is really, really cool. Now, this is the first half of the list. I'm gonna get to the second half of the list and talk about what I see here. Now, this is the back half. You'll see that this understock rank over there, it's from number 29 all the way down to number 89, and it's another mixed bag of ups and downs. Now, the other thing that I call out here is, these are all big name, right? It's Pokemon 151, right? There isn't a small named Pokemon in this entire set, but what you notice from the last slide to this one is all the big ones, the Bulbasaurs, the Charizards, the Pikachus, the Zapdos, like most of them are on that first slide, right? Because that's where a lot of the demand is. But the really cool thing, as I referenced earlier in my video, like in the very, very first beginning, was I said, hey, listen, these are some cards that I pulled when me and the kids were ripping some wax, and guess what? I wouldn't have even thought to put them on eBay. I wouldn't have thought to put them on TCGPlayer. Like, I would have just filed them away, I put them aside, and just, they would have gone into a deep, dark box. But because I know that a lot of these cards are in high demand, I was able to put them on and sell them. Now, the thing I wanted to call out too is we have seen a lot of cards with playability really come out of left field, right? In that very first slide, we saw Forest Seal Stone. Forest Seal Stone has been on absolute fire. Now, I know it's coming out in a deck in November, which could absolutely tank the price of it, but who knows? Forest Seal Stone has just outperformed every bit of, it just outperformed everything I thought it ever could do. So keep an eye on Grabber and Switch and see if those cards start to pop up here in the new future. You know, cards with playability, they have a tendency to do really well. And those are cards that when you're big time, like, I'm not big time, but if you are a big investor or collector, sometimes they fly under your radar and they can provide us with some really cool gains. Now, the other thing that I'm really excited about is in 2 more weeks, I think we're gonna have enough data to really get an idea of what the pattern and trend is, at least in these early days, for Pokemon 151. I am a huge fan of the fact that TCGPlayer has expanded this from 50 cards to 100 cards. You know, I always say the more data, the more analysis we can do, the more buttoned up we're going to be in the long run. So listen, everybody, that's it. Those are the top 100 cards coming up out of TCGPlayer. TCGPlayer's begging you and me to list them on their site because they're saying, hey, listen, these are in high demand and low supply. And if you made it to the end of this video and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. Y'all have an epic Sunday, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.